What's going on, Falcon fan? This is your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video. So today I'm gonna go ahead and cue my Florida Evans. Damn. hey, um, hey, it's irony, right? That's when James died from the good times. So that's the irony. We're talking about James Pearce Jr. today. Um, the unfortunate, incident that happened yesterday. We're definitely gonna get into that, and we're gonna talk about his future, um, and then we're gonna talk about the implications it has to the NFL and Atlanta Falcons. So with that being said, guys, if you have not already, go ahead and please subscribe to the channel. Please hit that notification bell so you know I drop another video. Please hit the like button, so I know you guys out here that I talk about. Then please share my video throughout the YouTube universe so more people can come and hear me talk about. That's right, these Atlanta Falcons. So guys, the Atlanta Falcons always in the news, but not for good things, right? Especially in the off season. We During the off season, Atlanta Falcons come up for the stupidest stuff. Last year was the whole, Kirk Cousins doing losing draft picks because he's talking too much, and he wasn't really injured the year before that. So I mean, it's always something. But this is really unfortunate news. It really is. Um, and we're talking about a young man that most of the Falcon fans, just a couple of days ago, was actually, upset, really upset. The fact that he did not win Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie Defensive Player of the Year. We all felt like he should have, because they gave it to the linebacker from the Cleveland Browns. Um, and this young man came into the NFL, the last rookie to actually have over double digit sacks since Michael Parsons. So his future was bright in NFL. It really was. Um, then you go to the pre-draft stuff about him. They were saying his character and things like that. The Atlanta Falcons did their due diligence. They even went up to his house the night before the draft to talk to his mom, to get a good sense of who the young man was. And you know, sometimes when there's smoke, there's fire. There's fire, right? Um, because I don't know if Terry Fontenot and Raheem, seeing something like this that would take place, just almost, less than a year later, of this young man just straight up crashing out, ruining his life. To really, in reality, that's pretty much what he did. Um, but just to get the details of what we know so far is that James Pearce Jr. Um, was arrested yesterday in Florida. Where now he's charged with 2 counts of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. Apparently, he hit his ex girlfriend's car multiple times with his car. Um, 1 count of aggravated stalking, so he stalked the young lady, and then he tried after the police got there. He tried to evade the police and get away. So he's charged with that as well, and he actually struck a police officer with his car. So this is serious. This is something. It has nothing to do with football right now. This is the human element of it. Two um, young black adults, into a situation where both of their lives gonna be affected by it. Um, you know, don't know. Like I said, we're not gonna get into the details. We know the charges. We don't know, everything about it. So you don't want to go either way about it. But what this young man did, he pretty much just straight up crashed out. And in our honesty, um, he's probably going to do some time in jail, right? If any of these counts hold, I mean, just the one hitting the cop with your car and hit his knee is probably is going to give some time, right? The other charges, usually some of those cases you might think you can get off on that kind of stuff and stuff like that, but in reality, um, this is not going to end well based off the information that we have right now. And then if you were just listening in last night and you kept getting more and more information, the worse it was getting. So this is not a good situation for the young man. It really is not. And sometimes, you know, when I was young, they always say carpe diem, right? Seize the day, and he seized the day in the wrong way, right? He crashed out, right? One mistake, and it could ruin you for a long, long time. And it's pretty much what happened with James Pearce Jr. He just lost it seems like, and you know, it's crazy what the mind do. Like he could not have been thinking at this moment, right? All these things that happen multiple times. You hit a young lady with your car, um, evading the police, hit a police officer. At one point, the officer actually drew a gun at him. So it's lucky to be alive, especially in the climate that we're in today, where young black man, and he's not a small human being either. He's a big guy, and or if you have not seen the video of them trying to take him down, so he was resisting arrest. He just crashed out, man, and it's not good at all. So, um, this has nothing to do with football right now. This is all about this young man. He probably need to get some help. Like I said, I think he's probably going to end up going to jail. These are serious, charges that they brought upon him. Said, now we have to let the legal process ways out and things like that. But at this time, um, this is not good. And go back to the young man from the Raiders, right? Um, that killed that young lady in the car driving fast. Like I said, sometimes your decisions you make could affect you for a long time in your life. And this one decision by this young man who future was bright, right? Um, the skies was the limit for this kid, and his mom just got up and spoke on his behalf at the NFL honors just a couple of nights ago, and I can't imagine what she's thinking right now, and actually can't imagine what he's thinking right now because he probably let a lot of people down, in his family, um, over one senseless thought and act, and so this is sad day for like I said, for their family, because I don't want to talk about I'm talking about football in just a minute, but for him, um, young man's life probably just ruined, simply as that, and it's really nothing else you can say about it. Of course, we're gonna wait till all the details come out, but what he's charged with right now, 2 counts of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, and 1 count of aggravated stalking. And then fleeing the police is another count, and he actually hit a police with his car as well. He crashed his vehicle, resisted arrest. I mean, what else can you say, man? It's not good for him, and hey, I don't get it. I can tell you this: if you go in history, men has fought wars over women. So I guess that's what he did. He crashed out, pretty much went to war on his own life, and man, it's not it's bad. It's sad to say, you know, that's just good. What's going on? So how do you have a winning Super Bowl? Um, we're gonna talk about football in just a minute. Just a minute. But I just wanted to get on here and talk about this. It was out last night. I started doing a video last night, but I wanted to, sit on it and think about it, and talk about this young man and about some of the stuff that's for him. So his future right now, his future has nothing to do with football. His future has to be about his legal issues that he just put himself into. Um, some of those charges are felony charges. I think 3 of them are. So maybe all of them are felony charges. So that's serious, right? Um, it's in Florida. So look at the statues and stuff like that. We definitely gonna get more information about this. But his future right now, it has nothing to do with the Atlanta Falcons or the NFL. It has more to do about how he can get himself right, what's going to happen to him, in the meantime, in these legal issues that he have, and that's pretty much where it lays, man. It's this, like I said, this is sad. It's sad, man. It's sad, and man, it's you can't make stuff like this up because you know you're gonna go back. You can't help to go back now and look into the allegations that, not the allegations, but the the reports that he was had a character issues coming out in the draft process, right? That was one of the reports, that he had a character issue, right? And that's why he was dropping down draft boards. It was reported by one scout. He's like, this was the worst report from a character standpoint that he ever seen, right? So, with all that being said, now when you look at something like this, you like, wow, were they right, right? And how did the Atlanta Falcons, and their team of researchers stuff miss this? Because this can't be just a one-time thing. It has to be signs there for somebody to just crash out like this, um, all of a sudden, right? Just it's insane just to think about it. So, um, right now, his future is definitely in doubt, um, and we'll just have to wait to see what happens. Right? That's what we're going to say. So, my thoughts and prayers go to both both side parties. You know what I'm saying? The young lady from the Los Angeles Sparks, Rakia Jackson, um, because she probably traumatized herself up on the whole situation. Especially somebody in your car, stalking you and stuff like that. That's not good. And like I said, that's what the report is, the count is, and then for him to crash out and ruin his whole life. So on both sides, my thoughts and prayers go to both of them and their families, and we'll wait to see what happens. But right now, his future has nothing to do with football. He needs to worry about his legal issues and probably get himself some help, because to crash out like that and to ruin your life at such a young age is it's just not good, man. So there you have it with the young young man James Pearce Jr. Now let's get into the football side, guys. Right? And so how do the Falcons move forward with this? So first of all, what's probably going to happen, because of nothing has actually been, he has been convicted of anything. He's probably going to get put on the NFL commissioner exempt list, right? That's probably what's going to end up happening. He's probably going to get put on the NFL commissioner exempt list, which means that, you know, he can't come into the organization. So that's probably the first thing that's going to happen. He's probably going to get put into the NFL commissioner exempt list. And then, the whole legal procedure and things that happen. And then based off what happens with that, then all the other things will happen. Now, for the Atlanta Falcons standpoint, um, I don't know if he ever play again for the Falcons. If all this stuff is true, right? Um, Domestic violence. I don't think Mr. Blank think highly of that. Now, a lot of people say, well, a couple of years ago, he was going to go get Deshaun Watson and all the allegations that he had. So, touche if you say that. But um, this is might not be, how this new regime want to take place. Remember, the person that drafted him, this team that drafted him is no longer with the Atlanta Falcons. So this turn on new leaf. And hey, Matt Ryan, Ian Cunningham, Kevin Stefanski, your first thing that you got to deal with is, dealing with this, because it's a big PR nightmare as well, especially for the new president of football, new GM, new head coach. They got to deal with this issue, So from a football standpoint, so personally, I don't think he if this holds, and if he go to jail, even if he don't go to jail, I don't know. if he plays with Atlanta Falcons again, which is just unfortunate. Now, there's precedence to this because um, Michael Vick had the same kind of situation, not the situation, not with the domestic violence, but when Michael Vick went to jail, and they had paid him. Remember when Michael Vick had signed the highest paid contract in NFL history at the time. It was $100 million contract, and the Atlanta Falcons wanted to recoup some of that money because of that, and that was a whole big thing and stuff like that. Now this kid only played one season. He had probably big signing bonuses and things like that. So I don't know how that works out. Anybody can shed some light on those details, and we'll probably hear more later on. If the Atlanta Falcons might try to recoup some money, whatever, on this situation and things like that. I'm just speaking from a football standpoint, guys. Nothing with anything else. I just talked about his legal issues, and that's what he's gonna have to deal with first, right? But we just talking about, once all that stuff cleared up, you know, when he be able to come back play football, then those decisions will have to be made on that. But that's where the Atlanta Falcons will have to deal with this, right? So, all right, I'm pretty sure the Atlanta Falcons did not have this, you know, on their checklist, being able to have to deal with, you know, their first round pick that that the last regime gave up, to get him, and then have to worry about pivoting and trying to deal with, you know, that now that's the deficiency that you suddenly have on your roster that you got to fix. So that's really huge in this instance. So that's one of the things that they're gonna have to think about. Let's get to some of these comments real quick before we move forward. Um, yes, he's made dumb mistake. He's the only one in the NFL that had made a bad choice, and he's done forget, and good player mess up his career. Yeah, he messed it up. His career, pretty much what you're saying is his career is done. Yeah, and I agree. I think it's over. To be honest with you. Um, Now, a lot of this, we just get reports. Like I said, we don't know if he's gonna get convicted or anything. That's why sometimes you say proven it, innocent until proven guilty, right? That's what you always say. But man, if any of these allegations are true, he's pretty much done. You say, I'll be scared when I see Matt Ryan and Kevin and Ian. That's like seeing the Illuminati all in your face. Man, this is not good at all for the Falcon organization. So, right, so like I said, these guys, first of all, they probably spent the whole week going over the roster, right? And one of the things that they probably, had decided, before all this happened was our pass rush is good. We probably good at the pass rush, right? That's probably one of the things they thought. Um, so looking at the free agents that we had from that standpoint, Andre Katie, Leonard Floyd, right? Looking at those two guys, um, May probably was willing to say, okay, we don't need these guys. We got two young pass rushers that was going to be, cornerstones for this team for a while, right? That's probably what they was thinking. Now, when this happens, you have to rethink, right? You have to go in a different direction. You have to pivot a little bit, and it's interesting, because if you listen to the press conferences that we heard from all three of those guys, that's one of the things they talked about because you have a vision, you have a plan, but you not be able to pivot when it don't go the way you plan, right? So this is one of the things that I'm pretty sure that they know, they understand they have to pivot, right? So you have to reallocate resources which that you had planned, right? When you're looking at your free agents, we're going to go out and get these free agents. These want to keep these guys, right? So when they're looking at their own free agents, because that's the first thing they had to do, evaluate the team, looking at their own free agents. More than likely, some of these guys that they thought probably just let them go, they might have to rethink that now, right? Especially when you talk about pass rush, right? The Atlanta Falcons was so um, improved last year from the pass rush standpoint, and James Pearce Jr. had a lot to do with that. But the fact that um, he won't be playing football probably this year, probably ever, I don't know. We'll have to see. But the Atlanta Falcons definitely have to relook at their plan. I think the most important thing for them though is their vision that they laid out should not change, right? Um, and that's building from the trenches, right? So they need to continue to keep that vision in line, um, and go from there, right? So that's your vision. You're gonna build within the trenches. No, you have a hold now with the pass rush, but that should not stop. Your initial vision is moving forward in the trenches and doing it that way. I still think they need to look at those free agents that had the most impact on this team this year. If they do that, I think they'll be good in that aspect. But this is huge. This is the first decision that this new regime, has to deal with. Like I said, first of all, it's going to be questions and PR nightmares all over the place, right? The implications of this. Luckily, like I said, that this is where the NFL steps in, and he's just probably going to get put on the NFL commissioner exempt list. So, you know, that'll take the hands away from the Falcons have to make any decisions right away, right? That's the first thing I'll do. So, um, but that number, and if we're looking at it right now, because I haven't really looked at his contract hit. We'll look at that real quick. So, because that's going to play a big part in it as well. The actual cap number for this year. Like I said, if you go back over time, the Atlanta Falcons kind of had this situation before. Michael Vick went to jail, went to prison, and they wanted to recoup some of that money back, right? Because in essence, really didn't honor the contract. That's what they're saying, you know. And it was all his fault. It wasn't because injuries or things like that. It's because something that he did. So that's where it boils down to. So looking at James Pearce Jr., it's only a $3 million cap hit this year. So that's not bad. That's not bad at all. It'd be $4 million next year, and then $5 million a year after that. So the cap hit on his salary is not huge because he was a 27 pick. So it's a first round, but it's a later first round. So the cap hit is not going to be big. The question is, what do they do with that contract? And I think, initially you don't have to worry about that because he's going to be put on the exempt list, and then he'll be off to the side probably until after his legal issues get handled and things like that. And then once that happens, if somehow miraculously he does get out of this without doing jail time, he will definitely be suspended, right? You look at what Rasheed Rice had. Look at what Ray Rice had. 6 to 8 games at probably. You look at what Deshaun Watson had. Deshaun Watson had 11 games. So I don't know. If anybody can look and see what the time links for whatever criminal action you do, how that suspension goes. But if miraculously this young man is able to play football again, he will be suspended. You know, and then the question is, would the team, the organization, the Atlanta Falcons, be willing to bring him back into that locker room? You know, one thing a lot of people don't like, especially domestic violence and things like that. That's not good. So, but like I said, somebody can say, "Well, he was going to bring Deshaun Watson in, and he had all those allegations with women, doing massages." So, I don't know. All right, you don't know, right? A lot of people saying that we know two teams probably take him, the Kansas City Chiefs and Dallas Cowboys, right? Um, but we'll just have to see, man. Right? But the Falcons moving forward, um, need to just pivot just a little bit, right? They need to keep their vision, right? This is a new regime, right? So this is definitely going to go back up and be like, the Falcons gave ready their first round pick, right? And we was looking good for a minute. Most of all the fans were like, forget those picks, right? Now we were able to get Xavier Watts out of those picks as well, at that pick as well, right? So we gave up that first round pick. Um, we lost Knucklehead. He's just going to say it. He'll Knucklehead, and um, it is what it is, man. But this is where as organizations now they can look at it this way, right? And they can look at it like, okay, just say he got injured, right, during the offseason, and they have to pivot that way. That's why you look at it for 2026. Like I said, for future implications, we don't know because um personally I think he's going to jail, just to be honest with you. Listen to the count, listen to the allegation, things like that. I think the kid going to jail. It's just me. But um like I said, if he don't, first he's going to probably get put on the NFL commissioner's exempt list. Then he's going to get suspended if somehow he miraculously able to come back into the league. But if not, right, they have to look at it in those sense, right? We lost this kid to injury, you know, this how we pivot. Now you looking for agency, maybe you go get a veteran pass rusher. Like I said, they could definitely bring Leonard Floyd back. They can definitely bring Armor Ebiketie back. Both of those guys are pass rushers on this team. Was part of that, that the surge and sacks that Atlanta Falcons had this season, right? But I would probably was thinking before this incident, they might was thinking about letting both of those guys walk, right? Because they were feeling good about their young two pass rushers that they had. Now they just need to pivot a little bit, and that's what's going to have to happen. However, they still need to keep the vision, build it through the trenches, doing it that way, and maybe have to reallocate some resources now to making sure your pass rush stays to where it was a year ago. That's the way you have to look at it from organization standpoint. Um, and I know people like, man, we can't never have good things, in this franchise and things like that. And this is just one young man. I mean, let's be honest, man. He freaking crashed out. That's what happened. Like, this is crazy. But you got it. Like I said, where there's smoke, there's fire. And if you go back to his draft report from last year, he had one of the worst character reports out there, right? And that's why he was dropping down draft boards and stuff like that. Now we do know that Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot went to his house the night prior to the draft, right? And sat down with him and they talked to his mom and they had a really good feeling about this young man, and getting him in the right organization and doing the right thing. And it seems like we had no issues on him all year. So to me, I feel like they probably they did their homework, they did their due diligence, making sure that they was bringing the right young man into the building. However, man, like I said, man, I just know like history speaks for itself. People have fought wars over love. I mean, go look at Helen of Troy, right? It's a myth, Greek mythology, right? But Troy fell because of Helen, and all he had to do was just get Helen back to Greece and go home. He didn't have to steal her and break her back to Troy. And Troy failed because of a woman, right? So, man, dude crash out all the time, and he just screwed himself. He messed his career up over this crap. And um, earlier I said, you know, two young black people is affected by this. Has nothing to do with football, but in the end, his career is probably going to be over because of all this. So that's where you have to think about it. What's going on, T. Terry? Eddie says No matter what, even if the charges are dropped or downgraded, he will automatically get 4 to 6 games suspension based on NFL. Yes, he's going to get suspended regardless. He's going to get suspended regardless. But like I said, like, you know, it depends on, Arthur Blank at this point, right? And how he feels about the thing, right? And what he wants to do with it, right? That's what it really boils down to. Remember, this regime that's in Atlanta right now did not draft James Pearce Jr., right? So they don't have like investment in the young man like the other guys did. They just don't, right? They know he was on the team. They know he was a good player. They don't know him. You know, they didn't do their homework. They didn't do their due diligence like Terry Funson or Raheem did. So the fact that, even if he does, you know, get cleared of these charges, he's gonna get suspended. But now it's about bringing the him back into the locker room to this new culture that the new regime is trying to create. So that's one of the things you got to think about. So we'll just have to see. Like I said, at this point in time, we won't have to worry about none of that stuff. The most important thing for the Falcons is to make sure they're pivoting and looking at now a need that they probably thought they didn't need, which is pass rush. It's probably back on the table. So they just have to look at that. So when they're going through, you know, um, their roster construction this year, especially looking at the cap and things like that. This is have to be this is just some one more thing that has to be factored in to how they're going to make sure they put a winning roster um, out on the field. That's pretty much what it boils down to. So just one other thing they had to deal with. The other thing is now president of football had to do a lot of interviews and spin and stuff like that to talk about this issue that they probably wish they didn't have to talk about. And so in a couple of weeks when we get to the combine, I'm pretty sure this is probably one of the first questions beside the quarterback question, of course, because the quarterback question is going to come up again. It's been asked every time they speak about the quarterback. And so that's definitely going to be one of the topics. But this right here is going to be definitely a topic. It's going to be talked about all this week coming up, you know, as well. And that draft pick definitely is going to come back into the fray again now, because initially people can say what they wanted to say. That draft pick, the Atlanta Falcons had hit a home run with it, you know, moving back up because they got two players for a price of one that's going to be impact players for this team for years to come, right? So, but now when you're looking at it, hindsight 2020, now you say, man, that's not a good thing. So that's where it is. What's going on, T. Terry? On the video, he wasn't fighting, and the Lambo didn't even look damaged. So we got somebody saying that the reports might not be as like I said, we're going to wait, right? We're just talking about what the charges are, so we don't know what the details was. It was reported that he hit her car multiple times though, so that's what the report was. Um, you are right. There are two sides to the story, but the charges says what the charges are. So and they could be dropped. If they drop, you know, that's good for him, right? And it has nothing to do with football. It's just good about his life, because if he hit a police officer with his car, like they're stating, that's not good. There was a report that he had either had even had a gun drawn on him, right? So he's probably lucky to be alive, especially in this climate. So those are some of the things that got like we don't know. We wasn't there. We don't know all the details, but we do know what was reported in the charges. So we just have to go off that and see what happens. Eddie says, "Listen to my thoughts. If Rice can get off highly from what he did, he just warranted a suspension. So can Pearce. Judicial suspension has worked out. Most of these professional players just say, yeah." Like I said, I you gotta say what I want to say about it. I'm just saying what the charges were. I'm not a legal guy, so I'm not talking um legal jargon because I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how the law works, but I can tell you this, right? If he hit a police officer with his car, he ain't getting off on that. That's just that's not happening. All the other stuff, right? The stalking and all that stuff, maybe so. But if you hit a police officer with a car, man, confident in Stefanski and GM will bring in their bigger body type DNs, the D rush rushers that they like and have been discussing, right? So it's interesting you talk about big ends because you look at a guy like Jane Harrison. Um, he's I said Jane Harrison, Zach Harrison. Damn, got James on my mind. Zach Harrison is a big end, right? The guy is huge, right? And before he went down this year, he was actually leading the team in sacks at 4.5 sacks before he went down. So definitely, you can see them pivot a little bit. We do know that Jeff Ulbrich wants to get home with just the front four, right? You don't want to, even though the Atlanta Falcons was one of the most highest pressure teams this year, they pressured a lot, a whole lot, and it worked. It was effective. But that's really not how he want to play football. He really wants to try to get home with his front four. That's really his philosophy, and play coverage on the back end. But so we definitely need to see where the Atlanta Falcons make improvements in the trenches, like their vision's been speaking to. So that's one of the things when we talk about um, how they move forward. I think it's important to just stick with your vision, and if you do that, I think they're going to be fine, right? This sucks. It really does from a football standpoint. You know, losing a guy that gave you 10.5 sacks. But at the same time, if you stick to your vision, because you want to improve anyway, right? So you wasn't going to stay pat and felt like that you had made it because you got 57 sacks. Your ideals was to get better, right? We do know that one of the biggest issues the Atlanta Falcons had last year was not being able to stop the run, right? So they was going to have improvements on that front seven anyway. But now, like I said, you just probably need to reallocate some more resources, a little bit more into the pass rush, right? Um, like I said, Leonard Floyd, Armor Ebiketie, those guys probably, you know, may play a bigger role in this season than a lot of us may have thought, right? I think it's important to bring back Caden Ellis 100% because he plays a factor in that pass rush as well. Um, and then I don't want to forget about Braylon Trice. We keep forgetting about him because we know he got injured and he ain't played in the last 2 seasons. But if he can stay healthy, that could be huge for him as well. So those are some of the things when you think about it, from what you want to see from you know this team moving forward is just stick to the vision, stick to the plan. The whole idea was to build through the trenches anyway. You know, it's a luxury to have a guy that was on the uprise that we had in James Pearce, but at this point in time, he's not going to be here, right? So you have to make decisions. But my opinion is that your vision that you came out with, physical, physical in the trenches, just stick to that. And if they do that, I think the Atlanta Falcons will be just fine. I really do. Um, he said, I'm just saying, an unregistered concealed weapon will get him along too, adding to your point. Yeah, all I'm saying, guys, is that we don't know the charges. We know what he been charged with, and like I said, if you was up last night and you were looking at the reports that was coming in, it was just getting worse and worse and worse. It was taught that he tried to get into the young lady's car, and then he couldn't, so he chased her. Then he hit her car with his, and then when she was trying to get to the police station, he tried to flee. It was a actual police chase where he wrecked his car. So those things those legit charges. If that's what happened, like I said, we weren't there when he said, but this was reported. And if that actually happened, in the Rashid Rice case, he had a wreck on the highway and then he left. Right, that's pretty much all that happened. Right, I don't think nobody got hurt in that, but he still got suspended for 6 games. In this case, you know, because they put the domestic violence tack to it as well. So if you look at the charges, it's not just you know battery assault. They tied it to domestic violence, which is probably worse. And if you guys remember the Ray Rice thing with NFL, how when the video came out, how outraged most people were. So if any videos on this, him hitting that lady car with his, it's just gonna make it 10 times worse. So that's why we all just need to sit back and just wait and see what happens, because don't make any rush decisions like what happened before, you know, before you actually see what happens, because then you look like, so like I said, just this let's just sit back and get all let the facts come out, and then we can make your decisions, your opinions after that. But before that, let's just sit back and let it happen. At this point in time, is he won't be on the football team anyway. He's going to be put on that exempt list, and that protects him as well as the NFL. That's pretty much how it works, because that way they don't have to worry about it. Because putting somebody on the field and then a video comes out later and the NFL looks bad, really bad, right? That's what happened with the Ray Rice situation. So what you want to happen is to let the legal process play out, and then they can make the decision what they want to make moving forward. That's how they need to do it. But from an Atlanta Falcons standpoint, it's the timing is pretty good for them, because they just get into their meetings and things like that, so they can easily pivot, right, to making their decision. Because I don't know if they really made any decision on anything yet, right? This is a new regime, so they would just get into their decision making process, looking at the roster and things like this. So this just added to it, so it don't really hurt them moving forward. Based off, they have to pivot a lot because they're just getting into their decision making. So I think that's going to help them. But I think if they stick to their vision and how they plan to build this team, I think they're going to be fine, and I really do. He says, um, yes, there were injured from Rice investigation, especially when alcohol was involved, but the lawyers took care of that business for him. Enough said from me. Yeah. So it was injuries, right? But you know, knuckleheads, man. Right? He was a knucklehead when he did that stupid crap. And this right here this is insane. I'll be honest with you. When I read it, and I'm like, this dude, you messed up your whole career. And I really want to get into the real talk, but I'm on the podcast, so I'm not going to really say what I really want to say. But man, is it that serious, bro? Is it that serious to mess up your whole life like this? Because potentially could have been dead, man. They pointed a gun at the kid. You know, luckily, and and I'm so happy that it didn't turn into something violent, more you know violent than that. And I'm so happy. But for him, he's definitely gonna have to make amends for this. Um, you know, for everything, right? And like I said to the young lady, usually victims don't get put in. I know them using the word victim lightly because people are like, well, how you know she's a victim? I don't know. You're right. I don't know the situation, but they try to usually keep the women out of the you know anonymous, but everybody knew who it was, right? We knew their relationship was public, and he was in Miami. That's where they do their league at, off-season league, unrivaled at. So um, he was just in San Francisco. Probably should have stayed in San Fran and for the Super Bowl, for the festivities and things like that. Man, Damn. All right, guys. That's it. Let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. We'll be back next week. After the Super Bowl, we'll talk about the Super Bowl. Good luck to both of the teams. I have no dog in the fight, but I do believe Seattle is going to win. Um, then we'll get into the off season. Really, that's what we're talking about. This is something that is going to be talked about, like I said, all week. So that's going to be huge. But other than that, the Atlanta Falcons got a lot of work to do. They get into their draft meetings this week, getting ready for the NFL scouting combine. Free agency is probably a month away, so they'll definitely be getting into that. We'll definitely hear more about Kirk Cousins. There was another report came out yesterday from ESPN, Adam Schefter, saying that the Atlanta Falcons are planning to release Kirk Cousins. I think we already knew that. I talked about that so much time, so it wasn't a surprise to hear that. That thing, Kirk Cousins talking about, either he maybe go back to Minnesota, or he might actually go into TV. Right, so that's some of the things that he probably got to consider with his career if the Atlanta Falcons do release him. Some people mentioned that he even come back Atlanta Falcons and for a lesser dollar amount. That could be the case. Um, so that's the way it is, right? What else? So the quarterback thing, we heard Michael Penix. Michael Penix actually was on radio roll this past week as well, right? And he said some really good stuff. He said he feel like he's a little bit ahead of schedule, which is a good thing. Um, it's funny. He was on Up and Adams with Kay Adams, and she put him up beside the last two MVPs. And their first 12 games, 14 games that they played in their NFL career, and his numbers was better than both of them, right? And yes, it was better than Josh Allen and Matthew Stafford in their first 14 games. But like I said, this generation, this whole new media and how y'all look at people is so different. Where after 14 games, you consider a guy a bust, right? And he has better number than the two guys that have been in this NFL for a while. Their first 14 games, and they turned out to be MVPs. So, like I said, if you want to get on Michael Penix by his injury issues, that's one thing, right? Say that he might not be healthy. That's the way you should approach this. But you're trying to call him a bust, it's ridiculous after 14 games. And 14 games is how many he played in. He only started 12 though, but he did play in 14 games because he did some came in some games after the game was decided, after Kirk Cousins had lost the game. Um, so so he played in 14, but in reality he only started 12 games. And everybody already want to label him a bust, which is ridiculous. Like I said, if you want to talk about his injuries, that's one thing. But his game, he can't know how he's going to play and how his career is going to go from a talent standpoint until for after 12 games, man. It's just impossible to be able to determine that. So um, there you have it. T. Terry says James Pearce Jr. should have walked away from the relationship, which was reported she broke up with him in September. So with the stalking, she probably was recording him. Yeah, man. Like I said, man. This is where, um, hey, she's a pretty little girl. I mean, maybe he couldn't take it. I don't know. I don't know. But you're right. He should have walked away. Atlanta has officially stated they're releasing him this weekend. They releasing who? They mentioned that? I did not see that report. I did. I did. I did not see that report. If you can send me that report, Eddie, that'd be cool, man. Because I did not see that. All right, guys. Oh, you talking about Kirk Cousins? Hey, hey, you talking about Kirk Cousins? My bad. Yes, they didn't. They did not officially say that yet. They did not say that yet. Man, Ryan just said that. Oh, you talking? Yes, talking. Oh, I thought you talking about James Pearson. Like what? No, they. Oh, you talking about Kirk Cousins? Yes, Kirk Cousins getting released. I already know he's getting released. Like, duh, we already knew that. So they didn't have to really tell us all that good stuff. But but man, there you have it, guys. Hey, this world is crazy, man. This world is crazy. There's so much other stuff going on in this world, besides football, right? And that's what this channel is all about. It's about the Atlanta Falcons and the football, but it's so much stuff going on in this world. So, you guys, pay attention, right? Don't have your blinders on. See what's going on around this world. Um, that American Pie was had to be amazing for him to do. Must have had. You must. You right. Dang. Well, there you have it, guys. Hey, at the end of the day, like I said, you make decisions, and you don't want to make decisions that could do something. And when I was in my last profession, as a Marine, and we used to have our safety briefs. Um, One of my staff CEOs said, "Don't seize the day too much, right? Carpe diem. When you seize the moment, right? And if you do it to a point where you can't come back from it, it could be your career." And unfortunately, that's probably what happened to James Pearce right here. He went too far, right? You know, he crashed out, and by doing that, um, he may probably ruin his life. Right? He will make come. It will come on the other side of this, someday. But if these charges stick, um, he probably ruined his life, man. For the life that he thought he was going to have. Let's just say that he's still gonna have a long life, but the life that he thought he was gonna have, um, probably won't be that case because of that one moment where he crashed out, and these young boys be crashing out like that. Um, if things he did was so egregious, why was his bond so low in Florida? I'm not legal. Like you guys keep asking me, I'm not legal or anything like that. And I'm not saying that anything he did egregious. I'm just telling you what the charges were. We was not there. I don't know what happened. So I'm gonna be on the side of you're innocent until proven guilty. That's just my mindset. However, the charges say stuff that could get you locked up in jail. That's my point of view of it. I didn't see it. I don't know what happened, and I'm not gonna make opinion either way about it because I didn't see what happened. But if the charges are true, what happened? He crashed out, man. That's all I'm saying. So, and, hey, but if the girl broke up with you in September, that's the reported, and you're still stalking her, and you was in San Francisco just 2 days ago. What are you doing in Miami? Like, come on, bro, let it go. Burns are always low unless it's fall into the murder or drug category. See, there you go. That's the answer to your bun question, right? I'm not a lawyer, right? I mean, it don't matter. Shit, he had the money to bail himself out. If it was millions of dollars, right? He probably could have bailed himself out. So, but I think every charge had a certain amount. to his bond. So if I was reading correctly, so like every charge that he had, it had a number to how much it costs to get out on bond based off that charge. And I think he had 4 counts, right? Two two assault battery with a weapon, right? And then fleeing on a police chase. That was another one. And then the last charge was striking a police officer. So he hit a police officer with his car. So that was the last charge. So like I said, that's 4 charges. I don't know if they legit, but those he got charged with. So like I said, I'm just speaking what the charges were. That's all we can do at this point in time, and we'll see what happens. All right, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in today. It's Super Bowl weekend. Super Bowl day. I definitely wasn't planning on getting on here today. To be honest with you, I wasn't. All right, I was gonna let everybody enjoy the Super Bowls. Get back on here tomorrow and talk about the Super Bowl. Get into the off season because the season is officially over. Right, we was gonna get into some good stuff. Yeah, no problem, big dog. Good trade. Yeah, no problem, no problem, no problem. But get into get into the Super Bowl, man. You guys have fun. If you're going, make sure you guys be smart in the Super Bowl parties and things like that. Um, don't do nothing crazy, right? Don't crash out and stuff like that at the Super Bowl party. If you betting on the game, hope your team win, right? If you're doing the squares like some people be doing, hope you have the squares be right for you and all those good things. So let's have fun today. Super Bowl day is really more like a holiday now, right? Right. So everybody get together, friends, right? This is a big time. Um, watch the halftime show or the other halftime show. Watch the halftime show or the other halftime show, right? Man, it's crazy. It's crazy. This world is crazy. But either way, guys, enjoy your day. Like I said, I'm rooting for the Seahawks. I'm taking it back. I'm not rooting for the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks gonna win. I don't care who wins, man. Forget both of those teams. But I just hope it's a good game, and season's over. On to 2026. There you have it. Let me know what you think about this whole James Pearce Jr. crash out last night, um, and how you think the Atlanta Falcons going to do moving forward. Right, got a lot to see what's going to happen, but we don't have to wait long, guys. Right, the next 3 months, this team will be, you know, constructed by this new regime, and we'll see where we go from here. I think the quarterback question will be answered. Um, we'll see if they stuck to the vision that they talked about, building through the trenches. We'll see all that stuff within the next 3 months, and then we can move on from there. Um, Eddie says Seahawks winning by at least 10. I think it might be more than that, to be honest with you. But we'll see, right? I think Dre may need to come out and prove that he should have won the MVP, prove all the dollars wrong. So there you have it, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Um, like I said, prayers up to Miss Jackson and Mr. Pearce, both of those guys. Hopefully, um, T. Terry said trade for a veteran. Yes, probably, maybe that could be a case. Trey Henderson's out there. He's going to be a free agent this year. How much he's going to be garnering, right? He's a little older, but Trey Henderson out there as a free agent. Maybe they could bring Trey Henderson in. Like, you never know. He's a bigger DN, right? Guy had 17 and a half sacks 2 years in a row. They wasn't that good last year, but, the 2 prior years, 17 and a half sacks. So the guy is a monster. So they could definitely bring a guy like Trey Henderson in. Just a thought out there. But either way, guys, like I said, prayers up to both of those parties, man. Miss Jackson and Mr. Pearce. Hopefully, they get their things right. Um, and when all the dust settles in this, hopefully it's not as bad as we thought. And the young man could continue his career, in his NFL and realize he just made a mistake on a day that, you know, hopefully we won't have to regret for a long, long time. So there you have it. This is your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video. Peace.